Hi guys, Olive here today to do another dual nonfiction book review for you. In this review video, I would like to talk about two nonfiction books that touched on somewhat similar notes for me. Each of these books discusses a well-known and generally well-liked topic, but both are typically experienced on a surface level. Both of these books take those topics to a deeper level, and I would like to discuss them and what both of the books have in common. Because I'm working real hard to earn my title of biggest yuppie on BookTube, those topics are wine and jazz music. So the first book that I would like to discuss is called Cork Dork, a wine-fueled adventure among the obsessive sommeliers, big bottle hunters, and rogue scientists who taught me to live for taste by Bianca Bosker. This is a paperback original published by Penguin Books in 2017, and it comes in at 329 pages. This is a memoir written by journalist Bianca Bosker, who was working as a tech writer when she became fascinated by self-proclaimed Cork Dorks, also known as sommeliers. Bosker declares herself as someone who becomes obsessed with people with very specific obsessions. So in this instance, she became obsessed with those obsessed with wine. These people are also known as sommeliers, wine experts and aficionados who undergo rigorous training in flavor profiles of wine, world grape growing geography, fermentation chemistry. They learn all of this in addition to immaculate methods of tableside service, which they use to provide lavish experiences to patrons of fine dining restaurants. And in general, they use their expertise to sell seriously expensive bottles of wine. They do it all not just because it pays well, but because they have a deep passion for wine. And Bianca Bosker didn't just want to understand this passion for wine, she wanted to become a certified sommelier herself. She starts her journey as a wine neophyte and uses some connections to get herself a job as a cellar rat, as in a wine cellar, pulling bottles at a busy restaurant. She speaks with scientists about the most underrated of the five human senses, the sense of smell. She attends an opulent and exclusive tasting event that she compares to an orgy. And ultimately, we see her study to take the certified sommelier exam herself. Wine is bottled poetry, said Robert Louis Stevenson. But really, it's more of an epic poem. Wine is more than just its flavor. It's a story. It's the blood, sweat, tears, and hopes that the pickers, farmers, and vintners put into the wine. It's the human contributions and natural metamorphoses represented by the craftsmanship of that bottle, along with the moral and historical dimensions. It's the history. It's the landscape, the story, and the people behind a bottle that give it soul and make it sing. Otherwise, it's just fermented grape juice. But the wine industry does seem rather untouchable and definitely has an element of mystery. Most of us sniff a glass of wine and say, yeah, that definitely smells like wine. In this book, Bosker dives into olfactory science and provides research and her own first-hand experiences of the ability to train oneself to pick up the hidden elements within wine. These tasting notes, or what someone smells and tastes when they're analyzing a wine, are what you see on restaurant menus. They refer to the chemicals present in the wine that come out in the fermentation process, either intentionally or accidentally. So if you see a wine described as being reminiscent of black cherries, it doesn't mean that they threw some black cherries in during fermentation for good measure. It means that some of the chemicals present in black cherries that give them that black cherry smell are also present in the wine. It takes a sharp nose to be able to pick up on these chemicals. And while some people are born with hypersensitive senses of smell, you don't have to have that capability to be able to pick up on those chemicals. You simply need practice. Lots of practice. Because most of us don't have this practice under our belts, we rely on these wine experts to guide us to the best bottles. And that means the most expensive bottles, right? Not necessarily. This book hints, and not so subtly, that the very expensive bottles are only a smidge better than their moderately priced counterparts. And sometimes they might not be better at all. Sometimes it's a matter of price. You've paid more, so you're primed to think that the taste is better. Or perhaps the price merely has served as a status symbol. Maybe the winery owner has given you a tour and told you the tragedy-filled story of the vineyard, triggering an emotional response and making the wine taste better. Sometimes it's the creme de la creme informing you that the wine is better. And sometimes it's, well, it can't really be explained. As one sommelier exclaimed when Bosker asked him to explain why one wine shocked him into an uncharacteristic silence, why can't the answer be that there isn't a fucking answer? I don't need to provide the answer to this question because why don't we have some goddamn mystery left in the world? It's in your heart. It's spiritual. It has nothing to do with quantification. And to me, at least, in a world where everything is quantified and everything is measured, thank God there's still something on this planet that belongs completely to the process and the mysterious and the aesthetic. In this book, Bosker's humor lights up the page. Her funny asides and self-deprecating humor, as she at times slides and at other times sloshes through her wine journey, makes her incredibly relatable, even if her experience, one of being privileged enough to live in New York City and take a year off to chase a wine-centric dream, is not quite as relatable. I mean, to have the tutelage of experienced sommeliers, to be able to meet with highly regarded scientists, to chase this dream of becoming a certified sommelier in a year's time when it normally takes minimum several years, it's a privilege worth noting, which Bianca Bosker dances around a little bit. She feels grateful, sure, but does she really understand how singular her experience is? I don't know. The book is very similar to Moonwalking with Einstein, in which we see journalist Joshua Foer go on a parallel journey, but with those who were obsessed with perfecting their memorization techniques. Given that Moonwalking with Einstein currently sits on my favorite nonfiction books of all time list, you can probably guess how I felt toward this book overall, despite some of the flaws that I noticed. There's just something about the magic of an individual who becomes fascinated by a group of intensely passionate and dedicated people who then dives into the subject matter themselves to see what the fuss is all about. The books are also similar in that both of the authors are chasing an ultimate goal. For Foer, it's the title of a memory champion. For Bianca Bosker, it's the certification of a sommelier. Are they ultimately able to achieve their aim? You'll have to read and find out. And the other book that I'd like to discuss on a seemingly impenetrable art is How to Listen to Jazz by Ted Gioia. This book was published in 2016 by Basic Books, and the hardcover comes in at 253 pages. This is a book written by jazz critic and music historian Ted Gioia, whose writing style I feel compelled to mention immediately. He is intensely conversational and readable, which made this book so much more approachable than I ever conceived possible for a topic as complex as jazz. In this book, he strives to give a thorough, yet not overwhelming introduction to jazz music, and in my opinion, succeeds in doing so. He describes how he critiques the music that he hears, what traits he listens for, and how he evaluates quality. And he steers the reader to the best methods of discovering what one's own personal taste in jazz is. He gives a history of jazz, beginning with its origins in New Orleans at the beginning of the 20th century. Then he chronicles the evolution of jazz up to the modern day, giving breakdowns and examples of the major styles that evolved over the decades. He also highlights notable individuals whose contributions to this genre of music are immeasurable. Most impressively, Gioia gives specific examples of songs to listen to every step of the way. When describing the structure of a typical jazz song, he gives an example for you to pull up on YouTube or somewhere else on the internet. Then he proceeds to visually break down the structure and talk you through it every step of the way, as though you were sitting in the classroom with him as your instructor. When describing the various style evolutions of jazz, you better believe he provides a handful of examples for each and every style. And most valuably, when he's talking about the jazz greats, he gives recommendations of how to proceed through each's discographies and gives his reasoning for those suggestions. So not only is this an accessible and reader-friendly work that is backed by expertise, but it is filled with a lot of really interesting insights that I took a lot out of and found really interesting and was able to relate back to a lot of the themes that I noticed in Cork Dork. We as people tend to be drawn to things that are easily figured out, classifiable, orderly. Wine and jazz don't fit into those boxes. While I think most of us would agree that wine and jazz are generally enjoyable, I've never met anyone who hates either of those things. Most of us, myself included at this point, enjoy them on a surface level. We don't look deeper. Some people may not care to do so, but I think most people just don't know how. Both of these topics seem unduly complex and not for us, right? Not necessarily. They are both not easily understood. But that's half the beauty. As Ted Gioia states, all human learning and experience can be divided into two groups. You can tell a lot about people based on which of these opposed realms they prefer to inhabit. On the one hand, we have experiences that always repeat themselves with unvarying sameness. This is the realm of science, mathematics, and deductive reasoning. When the experiment is repeated, it produces the same results. On the other hand, we have those experiences that will never be repeated. This is the realm of the poetic and miraculous, the one-time event that won't come around again. That's the universe that contains your first kiss, the moment of your child's birth, and all the other singular incidents that, even in an age of digital backup and copy and paste, refuse replication. Jazz belongs to that miraculous realm. When the jazz experiment is repeated, it never produces the same result. You can always leave the jazz club and check out a rock or pop covers band. That's perfect entertainment for people who want to live in the realm of perfect replication. Jazz, in contrast, is for those who want to be in attendance when the miracle happens. The experience is what it's all about. You may not be able to describe what it is or how to look for it, but you'll know it when you see it. It is emotional. It is spiritual. I think that's a big reason why I'm attracted to them both. As you've heard me say a million times, I am more of a logical person. But both wine and jazz music force me into a different realm. They're challenging. They're unquantifiable. They frustrate me and thrill me all at once. Both of them can be what they are on a surface level. You can get drunk on any glass of wine. You can bob your head to just any jazz song, perhaps even at the same time, regardless of quality. But if you care enough, you can invest your time, practice, and develop a taste for either or both of these things. You can give of yourself emotionally and have an entirely different experience. In summary, both of these books pull the curtain back on what can seem to be confusing and pretentious seeming fields and show them for what they really are, art and soul. These books examine the disparate yet similar human reaches for deeper experiences with their senses and their emotions. So those were some of my thoughts on these two really great nonfiction reads. I would love to hear from you down in the comment section below if you've read either of these books, what you thought of them, or if you're now interested in reading them after hearing me talk about them, or if you would like to chat about anything else, you can put that in the comment section as well, or you can find me on a variety of different places on social media, and the links to all of my profiles are linked in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.